Hello, everyone, and welcome to No Drop. This is a very special episode. I have Tim from Heavy Water Coffee. Hey, Tim.
Hello, hello. What's going on?
And, you know, coffee is such a huge part of cycling. And you are definitely somebody that I see as, you know, an expert, an authority in the subject of coffee. And you know, before we sat down to do this, I actually looked into a little bit about how coffee and cycling are connected. And I thought I was going to come up with some super awesome story about, you know, these cafes in Europe where all these cyclists would congregate and things.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it was not that. The only thing I could find as far as the first connection to coffee and cycling was the fact that I think in the 50s, a coffee company sponsored the Tour de France.
Oh, really?
And so that seems to be the origins of coffee and cycling. It's just
Okay.
marketing and a brand. So
Yeah.
which is fine. But since then it's really evolved, and the cafe or the coffee shop plays such an integral part for the cyclist experience now. And so I'm kind of curious to get your perspective on how do you see the roles of cafes and coffee shops sort of playing out in the cycling community?
It's a really interesting dynamic, I think, between cycling and coffee shops, because I think at its core, cyclists are just looking for a communal hub that can provide space for them, physically. And then also, I think within the cafe bandwidth, having that energy and understanding the dynamic of a group coming in and just immediately slamming your cafe.
Yeah.
Not everybody's down for that, So
Sure.
but I don't know, it is strange that coffee and cycling are so linked. You're always riding to or from a coffee shop.
Oh yeah.
It's crazy.
If
As far as the communal aspect, yeah, it's just it's a really interesting thing. And I think it just comes down to space and again, community. I think that on rides, the big connection happens pre or post ride. So the cafe is one of the few places in society where you go with the intention to have a conversation.
yeah. Yeah.
You go to a bar, but there's alcohol involved and not everybody gets down like that. But with coffee, it's just the main thing is to go and make human connection and just
Yeah.
have conversation and catch up
Yeah.
for so many people. So I think that in essence, cyclists are going to a cafe to either have a summary of the ride, what just happened, or just to actually sit down and then connect with the people that you're spending
Yep.
an hour and a half with suffering.
Talk about the route.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Just talk about bikes. All we talk about are bikes.
Bikes, segments,
Gear.
food, gear we're gonna buy, gear we have no plans on buying, but we still want to talk about it.
Yeah, gotta love the gear.
It's a place that holds all those conversations, and your point that it's unique from a pub experience is spot on, in my opinion. And I'm kind of curious, as the owner of your coffee shop is in Echo Park in Los Angeles, kind of over. Can you describe kind of the area that it's in?
Yeah, so we're right off of this. Jimmy from Golden Saddle put me on to this shortcut a long time ago not a long time ago, but when I first started riding bikes. It's called the Chinatown Wiggle. And I think that it was used by bike messengers, and it goes from Chinatown over through Sunset. And it's kind of a cut through that messengers would use to avoid any of the significant hills. So we're right off of Alpine Street. If you're coming down Sunset, you go left on Beaudry, and there's a little bit of an S turn to Alpine. And we're just tucked up right in the neighborhood.
Okay.
So on the corner of Alpine and Centennial.
Kind of right next to Chinatown, or right on the edge of
Right
Chinatown.
on the cusp of Chinatown, Echo Park.
Okay.
Yeah, right next to Eastside Deli. So if you pass the shop and then you turn left and right over the bridge, you're in Chinatown.
So you were turned on to that location from a cyclist.
Yeah.
And then I'm curious, as like the owner, as the proprietor of a shop, how did you look at the way that you were going to build a shop that was, conducive and open and welcoming to the cycling community?
Yeah, I mean, I had just gone to that space to look at with my friend Jen, who's opening up her bakery in the same area. And for anybody who hasn't been to the coffee shop before, the coffee shop is built out within a 2-car garage that is street facing, and then directly behind the cafe, there's a giant courtyard.
There's the chill spot.
Yeah, and there's a huge courtyard with like a garden area. There's like kale and grapes and mint and lemon verbena, and we even have a banana tree. And there's just tons of space to like put your bike and not have it be on the sidewalk in the way of other customers and like pedestrians and stuff like that. And also there's just like, so there's the aspect of having your bike feel safe in that space, and then also like a space to hang out, which I was like, whoa, this is included in this space. Like this is kind of a game changer.
Yeah.
Because once I just saw the space, I was like, this is the perfect like group ride meetup spot. And that definitely was a significant like factor in the decision to go into this space. It's a bit of a challenge to be like, how do we integrate into this community authentically, like by providing something for the neighborhood.
And that is another thing that I think is fascinating about your perspective on what you do, is you do see the cafe in your shop as not only a place for cyclists to congregate, but you see it as a part of the community and something to serve the community.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I go about coffee is just driven by like my mode of operation, which is compassion for like the general public. It just has to be like that. If you're not operating like that, I feel like you're upset, but it just really goes back to like treating people how you'd want to be treated. And like, I would want space for me to go and just take up and be a part of.
Yeah.
So by being a part of this space and then opening it up for the general public, and then doing things like, it sounds silly, but like we offer a $2 cup of coffee on our menu.
Yeah.
And that is a very small, easy thing to do. But what it does is offers an access point for all economies of the neighborhood to come and experience the cafe that we've built.
Yeah.
And to come and have like a dignified transaction, to get a coffee and go and sit in the courtyard and enjoy a good cup of coffee in this very like peaceful setting, which is really rare in Los Angeles. Like how many coffee shops can you go to and like sit in a garden and see the skyline of downtown?
It's mostly like busy streets
Yeah.
with like high traffic
and
constantly.
Like fire trucks buzzing by and just like motorcycles and stuff like that. And in the Heavy Water Courtyard, it's super peaceful and nice. And that's like very rare in the city.
Yeah.
But even on the production aspect, I have a relationship with a lot of different farmers, like in Guatemala and Colombia and Mexico, where I'm talking with them on WhatsApp, and we're creating contracts to where they get paid what they need for the coffee. And then we shop the contracts to other importers.
That's amazing.
So then that way, the importers aren't good. Like a lot of the importers in specialty coffee control the window into the U.S. Coffee market.
Yeah.
So then they're a lot of the times like dictating the prices of things. Coffee quality will dictate like a little bit, but it's really like a lopsided situation at this point in time. But by being able to go and communicate with the farmer, we can sort of reconstruct the money line of coffee in that way to make sure that they get paid, because the production line of coffee from like bean to cup, the majority of the physical labor, probably like 70% of the physical labor within producing coffee happens at origin. You know, like they're growing the coffee, like watering it and then harvesting it, and like most of it is processed by hand.
Yeah.
Like so many different sorting processes where like they float the coffee, and any of the coffee cherries that float to the top are then hand picked out for defects. And it's like so labor intensive. So like there's just a lot of work to be done, honestly, in in like the ethical production of coffee, and we're just trying to do little things, like make a bunch of little efforts that will comprise like a greater effort to just reconstruct the money line of coffee.
Sure.
But having a cafe sort of gives us like a physical aspect to do that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You have something that you can do where you're hands-on with the roasting. You select the beans, and then you're hands-on with the roasting. And then you bring those beans into the shop and you dial in your espresso machine
Yeah.
to the particular bean that you've just roasted.
Yeah.
And then you run that until it's gone. And then you bring in a new batch of beans.
Right,
And you
yeah.
start the process
You
all
just
over again.
Start it over again.
You are the most hands-on person in coffee,
Yeah,
I think, that I know, and maybe the most hands-on in the area.
I mean, yeah, I cup coffees before importing them, and then import them, and then roast the green, and then I roast with a specific roast profile in mind for how the coffee is going to be consumed. So it's like whether espresso or drip or cold brew or pour over.
Yep.
So I roast the coffee like with those methods in mind, and then bring the coffee into the shop, like you said.
Yep.
Dial in the drinks and everything like that. The Mike from Collage is also doing this.
Oh, okay.
Mike is one of I think the only other people that I know
Yeah.
that like, and he's like, I don't know if he would call himself my mentor, but he definitely like put me on in a lot of ways and like really helped like bring me up with roasting. Like I had trained under some other people from Sightglass as well, but me and Mike lease time on the same roaster, and he also is like hands-on in a very similar way that I do.
Cool.
That it's like, honestly, like Collage is awesome.
Yeah,
and
I know people rave about their beans.
yeah, and
roasts.
the coffee is awesome. I feel like Mike would never. I feel like he would never like claim the amount of like work that he does and like how significant that is.
Humble
that he
about
does
it.
that. Yes.
Yeah.
Like very humble, very like Boston about it. He's like, yeah, of course I do everything. You know what I mean? which is sick, but it's like, dude, that's rare. Like that's so rare what we're doing because at the end of the day, it's like he cares about it.
Yeah.
Like he really cares that the coffee comes out good, and he's there like interfacing with customers. And it's like talking to customers about like the roasts and stuff like that. And like that is something that's really special that we do, of being able to talk to customers and they'd be like, oh, like how should I brew this coffee? And it's like, how are you brewing it? With an AeroPress? Like, do you have your own grinder? Do you have a scale at home? Like, you know what I mean? Let's talk about the material conditions of your coffee setup.
Yeah.
And then we go from there. Like, what do you have right now? And what may you need to add to elevate your coffee experience at home?
Yeah.
Like I talk to people so much about that whenever I'm in the shop. They're like, how can I make my coffee better at home? And so it's really cool to be able to connect with people in the community in that way.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's like a really cool way to, I don't know, just help people.
For sure. Because, I mean, as much as we love going to coffee shops, coffee at home, for me in particular, I'm like a pre-ride coffee at my house.
Yeah.
And then I go to the coffee shop. Maybe I get a coffee there. Maybe I don't. Depends on how strong my cup was in the morning.
Yeah.
We do the ride. There might be a stop in the middle. There's definitely another stop at the end.
Yeah.
So it's a coffee-driven activity for sure. And
Dude,
having spaces like yours where, you know, we can meet and we reliably know that we have a spot that we're going to be able to hang out. Our bikes are safe.
Yeah.
We're going to be welcomed by the staff. Because your point of like, not all shops love a group of 10 cyclists, much less 70 cyclists showing up to their shop and kind of messing up their, you know, whatever morning it is that they have their coffee rush.
I think at the root of that it is, which is understandable, like the people who are dealing with this rush for the most part are just the hourly employees that work at X spot.
Yeah.
You know, and So it's probably brutal for them to just come and get this insane rush. I mean, having said that, like, at least on our ride,
tip your baristas, everybody.
yeah, you got to be tipping. You get
Please.
hey, tip for drip, all right? Because I know that like it just seems like they're filling up a cup of coffee.
Tip for drip.
There's so much work that goes into that cup of coffee before you walk through the door.
Yep.
So you're compensating for that. And
Yeah.
also you're compensating for this weird like economic system that we have where we have to rely upon the tips of like the general public to subsidize like our hourly wages.
Yeah.
Which is, you know what I mean? I'm not going to get political.
I'm sure you have thoughts on that. I'm sure you have thoughts on that.
I'm not going to go too crazy on it, but
Tip for drip, people.
you got to tip for drip, you know, just $1, do what you can. And honestly, like our like unofficial motto for the shop is happy to serve. Because I mean, we have to work for a living, but we have the rare opportunity to get to interact with so many different people and so many cool people that makes the job really interesting. And when the cyclists come through, it's always like the shop is so full of energy.
Yeah.
And it's like, it feels awesome. And we're always so hyped to have like cyclists come through because opening a shop, it's fucking terrifying opening up a coffee shop.
Yeah, man.
Like, luckily I was poor when I went to college. So I got a bunch of grants and stuff and I never went into debt for that.
Yeah.
But I went into debt for this coffee shop and I put everything into it.
Wow.
So if it's like, so every time like cyclists come through the shop, I feel like I know, like if somebody rides a bike to the shop, I'm gonna go and be like, "Yo, what's up? Have we ridden together?" You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Because like that's what it is. You come and it's community.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
So like I'm very thankful and very appreciative of anybody that comes to the shop. And if you come to the shop on your bike, I feel like we're friends.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
oh, for sure. I mean,
you drink coffee and you ride a bike. Like we got two big things in common.
that's our whole life. You could be separated at birth at that point.
Exactly.
And that is one part of the coffee shop experience that we haven't really touched on yet is it's a great place to meet people you've never met before.
Yeah.
Because like you said, if you see somebody, if they're having a cup of coffee, they have their bike next to them, that's a conversation starter right there.
Oh, yeah.
Where are you going? Where have you been? What kind of riding do you do?
Yeah.
It's
and just
all a way
being
to
put
branch
onto
out.
like other routes.
Yeah.
You know, like we've been hosting some group rides.
Yes, you have.
We've been doing the like international cycling group ride every other Friday.
Yep.
Which has been awesome. And we've been doing some events with Canyon Bikes.
Can people find a lot of these events on the Heavy Water Instagram?
Yeah.
Okay.
So like, and we have a bunch of stuff coming. So if you don't follow the Heavy Water Instagram, you should if you want to like know about group rides and stuff like that we're doing. We also do some group trail runs as well. It's Heavy Water Coffee.
I will link that in the podcast description notes below. So if anybody needs to find that Instagram link or the website where you have like beans available.
Yeah, just heavywatercoffee.com.
Heavy Water Coffee. The beans are also available at the shop.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely incredible beans to have at home.
Thank you.
They're spectacular roasted in the shop, but they're really good when you bring them home. I do them with a pour over Chemex style.
I mean, home brew was like the initial, that was like what I was roasting for because that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to really dial in this coffee to like brew like a Chemex or pour over or even like a automatic coffee maker.
Yeah, like a drip.
Yeah. It performs really well in that capacity. So there's still a level of coffee that you can't create at home because we're working with commercial equipment.
Oh, yeah.
know?
I mean, your equipment setup is
the equipment is like very fine tuned, and we're professionals.
Yeah,
truly. I mean,
yeah.
It might sound silly to say, but like we just had an employee meeting and I was talking to everybody, and it's like we toe the line between like a hyper focus on hospitality, but also maintaining a very high professionalism within drink making.
Yeah,
because they both have to be there. You know, like you have to make people feel welcome, and you have to just be like, when somebody's ordering, I tell my employees, like, do nothing else but lock in with them and just really make sure they know they have 100% of your attention.
Yeah. It's a great customer service experience being in there.
Yeah. I mean, and it should be, because you're coming and you're giving us your money, and there's a coffee shop every other corner. So if you don't have that good experience, you don't have that connection, you're going to go somewhere else. Like I understand
100%.
that acutely.
Yeah.
So it's a very like specific experience we're trying to curate when you come into the shop, that it's like you have all of our attention, and then we're going to do everything we can to make sure you get the drink that you want.
Yeah.
And the drink is of the highest quality.
I can share a story. I went into Heavy Water Coffee one time on a bike ride, and I ordered a iced Americano with just a splash of that vanilla infused simple syrup.
Yeah.
And as I'm ordering, the barista goes, wait, it's going to be 10 minutes because we have to calibrate the espresso machine for this new coffee roast that we just got.
Yeah.
And I had never heard that at a coffee shop before. I had never heard somebody say, like, we have to QC this before we can put it in a cup and give it to you so you can have the best experience possible. And
dude, that's awesome.
So I waited. I waited as long as I needed to, because I was like, now I'm interested. I'm even more interested now. And it was like one of the best Americanos I've ever had in my life.
Dude, that's so cool to hear. I mean, the reason you may have like never had that said to you before is because most shops, and I know this because I've worked in coffee in Los Angeles for the last decade.
Yeah, you got history.
So I know that it's like when you're dialing in a new coffee and there's like a drink coming down the line, it's like somebody's just usually going to give you that busted shot.
For sure.
And then you're going to be like, this drink's like a little off, but I'm not going to like return it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like you can get away with it. But I'm, again, like with our training and like the sort of like ethos I try to instill in the employees is that people understand what they're getting into when they come to a specialty coffee shop and when they come specifically to Heavy Water, where it's like it's not going to be the quickest transaction because what we're doing takes time.
Yeah.
So like never change your pace for the amount of people in line. You know, like we're not going to rush, we're not ever going to go slow, but we're just going to maintain a speed that we can keep quality.
Yeah, I would definitely encourage everybody to check out Tim's shop, Heavy Water Coffee in Echo Park. And one last thing before we maybe wrap this up is I'm just curious of like going forward, do you have any big plans with either your shop, or is there anything exciting that you know about in the coffee community kind of going forward?
I'm excited about, I've like pre-booked some coffees that are really exciting. That I have a coffee coming in from Guatemala that I've been working with this farmer, trying to like get it imported because it's coming from a farm that doesn't really have like an import relationship established with the U.S. coffee market yet. So I think I might be like the first or second like roaster in the States to even access this coffee.
Whoa.
Super excited about that.
That's
and I've been talking with them for over a year.
Wow.
So that just landed at the port up in the Bay Area. So I'll have that coffee in probably like the next couple months, which is really exciting for me.
That's so exciting.
And then besides that, I have some other stuff in the works. Maybe maybe a Heavy Water 2 of some sorts happening somewhere else in the city. TBD on that one. But yeah, I think we have some like cool rides and stuff that are going to be coming up. Honestly, just trying to, like, now that the craziness of like opening the shop and getting it like to like normalize and just getting it sort of like a consistent, like well running machine has started to happen. I can focus more on like community type events and stuff like that. So I think moving through the holidays into the new year, definitely going to be seeing a lot of cool like cycling community type stuff happening out of the space. Like I really want to put on for LA cycling community. I think it's one of the coolest things that I've ever been a part of. You know, like meeting all of the people through ponies and like making legitimate friends through the group ride, and then going and doing like missions with them, like all over, you know, like Southern California.
Such adventures.
And yeah, it's just so cool. So it's like so special. And even just seeing all the people who like I got into riding a bike through trail running, and was very much just a hobby, you know.
Cross training.
I have a car,
Yeah.
you know, so I can drive somewhere if I need to. But I see a lot of like the people in the Los Angeles cycling community that just cycle as like a means of transportation, and it sounds like so basic, but it's so fucking cool.
Yeah.
That it's like these people live this lifestyle that is like they live on the bike,
Yeah.
and like that's cool, that's authentic.
It's a very unique machine. It's a very unique invention in that it's a way to have adventures and have fun, but it's also a way to transport yourself.
Yeah.
You're always moving at a speed where you can take in your surroundings and really sort of appreciate everything going on.
Yeah, I see some of my friends riding, like I'll ride my bike from Pasadena to the shop, and I'll leave at like 5:30 in the morning. Like I get up basically an hour early just to be able to ride my bike to work. And I see a lot of people like up early riding to work.
Yeah.
And then when they get off work, they're hitting up their friends and they're like, let's go ride bikes.
Yeah.
Like that's so insane.
Little backpack.
Yeah, you know? Like that's so crazy to think about, that it's like, man, it's just really special, you know? Like, so it's cool to even just be in the periphery of those people who are so authentically a part of like what I think represents Los Angeles cycling so well.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to hear more about the events and hear more about the community stuff that you do through the shop.
Yeah.
And again, everybody check the podcast notes for the Heavy Water Instagram link, website link. Go check out the shop. Tim, thanks so much for your time, man. I know you're super busy, so I really appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate any opportunity to get the word out about the shop, and also just like make time to have a very specific conversation.
Oh,
it's
man,
nice.
You're so welcome. Thanks so much for talking coffee, community, coffee shops, cafes.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Very cool.
Cool, man.